WMPG thrives with support from listeners and from Maine Solar Solutions. Maine Solar Solutions, helping empower homeowners and businesses with solar electric solutions for 10 years. Information at mainsolarsolutions.com.
You're listening to WMPG 90.9 Gorham, Portland, Southern Maine Community Radio from USM. Live from the Orion Cygnus arm of the Milky Way galaxy, this is Scientifically Speaking, a weekly half-hour program devoted to elegant curiosities, and I am one of your hosts, Sarah Chang, and joining me as always is Bernie Ryan, PJ Star Watcher. How are you, Bernie?
Hi, Sarah. Very good, thank you.
Bernie is our professor of the astronomy lab here at USM and our local protector of the night skies. Reach out to us at WMPGScientificallySpeaking@gmail.com or on Twitter at WMPGSciSpeak, and you can head over to WMPG.org to find the last 5 weeks of archives of all of your favorite shows, including this one. Bernie, could you let our listeners know what is up in the night sky for this coming week?
Yes, certainly. So this will be Friday, September 23rd. Fall just started on the 22nd, Thursday at 9:04 p.m. So we're just a few hours into fall. Basically, we have a waning crescent moon. It's going to be new moon on the 25th. So we won't really, that coming up till about 4 in the morning. And then with fall having just started, you would think the day should be 12 hours long. But actually the sun rises at 6:30 and sets at 6:38. So the days are 8 minutes longer than 12 hours. They won't be exactly 12 hours long till September 26th. And the reason for that is that we're not orbiting in a perfect circle. We orbit in an ellipse, and we're tilted at almost 23.5 degrees. So if you work that in, actually you're offset about a week as far as the actual 12-hour times for the fall and the spring equinoxes. And then planet-wise, Saturn is already up. I've been watching it for quite a while. Jupiter is going to be at its very best in just 3 more days. It'll reach opposition September 26th. It's actually going to be the closest to the Earth since 1963. It's almost 60 years. So if you think Jupiter's been bright so far, and it has, it's going to get even better. And it's going to be good through the whole winter too. But it's very bright. It's only 6 times less bright than Venus. Mars is getting better every single night. It'll be at its best December 8th. So it's rising around 10 o'clock now. By the end of October, it'll rise by 8 o'clock. Venus is just about fading out in the morning sky. We're going to lose that in a few weeks, and then it'll be gone for a while, and it'll show up again in the evening sky. So that's basically it for this week. There's a meteor shower coming up next month, so you won't see more than just your average stray meteors this week.
Awesome. And then, Bernie, is there anything coming up this weekend that folks
event-wise, there's actually several interesting events, because a lot of them are kind of planned for fall. So our own astronomy club, the Astronomical Society of Northern New England, is doing its annual Starfest on starting today, Friday the 23rd, and most of the events will take place tomorrow. A cookout, a raffle, lectures, solar viewing, and of course night viewing if it's clear tomorrow night. And also, you have the Common Ground Fair starting Friday. And then there's a festival at UNH, which used to happen every year, but it hasn't for a while. That's the New England Fall Astronomy Festival, and that's September 30th and October 1st, so next weekend.
Oh, nice.
So a week from now, that's been resurrected. I've met famous speakers there like Dr. Alex Filipenko and Dava Sabel, and a lot of neat people. We met Dava at Stellafane also. But I first met her at the Fall Festival at UNH right by the observatory, which is just off the campus, but within a mile or so. So that's coming up next weekend. So lots of interesting events coming up.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Bertie.
Yeah, sure.
And if you can take notes fast enough, you can also check out the monthly What's Up column in the Portland Press Herald. The author of a book titled An Optimist Tour of the Future, Mark Stevenson, and I quote, he says, "The technologies aren't the most important bit, although they are super cool. It's what society does with them, and right now it's institutional change that's the sticking point. What you really want to look at, in my opinion, is new ways of organizing ourselves." And I thought this was very applicable to our topic today. A few weeks ago, we did a show highlighting futurists who are modern day futurists who are making predictions that based on trends that can help shape our world and our planning and how we kind of live in a society that has all of these new things happening. And so, just to remind you, the area of futuristics is essentially a mode of thought to influence public policy to serve and protect the interests of the future. And per the president of the World's Future Society in 1975, he says, we cannot go on letting the future just happen to us. And so, just like how you plan for things, this is kind of seeing into the future what we think will be happening and hopefully mitigating any negative potential outcomes of those changes that we see coming soon. So, Bernie and I today, for our show here on Scientifically Speaking, we're going to go through a couple of predictions. I think we have 8 specifically that we're going to talk about what they are from our futurists, our fellow futurists who have come up with these predictions, what their implications might be for us. And these are all going to be predictions that are coming in the next, or that will be in place for the next 10 years, in the next 10 years. Is that right, Bernie?
Right, yeah, not way off in a distance.
Right. So it's not like, flying cars. It seems like that was like the big thing. Everybody in our past predicted that we would have flying cars by now,
Yeah, I
and
thought that as a kid, a long time ago.
has
That
not
hasn't
quite yet
happened.
happened. All right. So, Bernie, why don't you kick us off with our first one, which is about the brain net? What is that? Who made this prediction, and what is it all about?
Okay, well, that was Michio Kaku, which we've talked about before because he's one of the top futurists. Obviously, he does write the books about all kinds of things like, current and 50 years and 100 years and so on. So basically, that is way beyond the internet or even the metaverse or the Internet of Things. It actually is a way to include thoughts, emotions, feelings, and memories into the internet. So
Mm.
not only will you be able to get the facts, which obviously a lot of people aren't even going to believe, but they're also going to get a lot of these other things, which could also apply then to history, future events, past events. It'll just make a much more realistic internet. With obviously, you'll need way more technical ability before it can work into thoughts, feelings, emotions, and memories. But that's on the way within 10 years, he thinks.
Yeah, and I think he kind of describes how he makes his prediction, which is right now scientists can apparently hook the brain up to a computer and start to decode some of our memories and our thoughts. This sounds way more advanced than I believe it was a year or two ago. There was a report out of Stanford that talked about how basically you could have these electrodes connected to your brain that would detect all of the electrical pulses, if you will. And for somebody who can no longer move their mouth or their vocal cords to produce speech, and with a healthy brain otherwise, they could, with this technology, think of how they would say a sentence.
Mhm.
And this computer could detect those electrical impulses and return kind of computerized speech that has been processed
I think that's
from
something like
those.
what Stephen Hawking was using for many years already, right? Some level.
He was, no, his technology was he was spelling the words out with his eyes, whereas this
Oh,
is electrodes connected directly
so
to
it's
the
way better
brain.
than that then.
Yeah, yeah. And this was like early stages. So
Mhm.
I have not heard of what he is talking about as far as being able to decode memories and thoughts. That sounds far more advanced. But, he describes that teenagers will be able to go crazy on social media and send memories and sensations from like their first date or their first
Mhm.
kiss or, other very pivotal moments in their lives.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, historians, like you said, will be able to record events not just digitally, but emotionally as well. And so, I think, Bernie, when you had mentioned implications for history, do you think that it would help people kind of really be able to walk in someone else's shoes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's important now for anything, the regular empathy and compassion and so on that we need. but actually to be seeing what the Native Americans might have been like. Even as a kid, I was always taught that the Indians were bad. We have to get rid of them and all that. And Columbus was some great hero. So obviously we know better than that now. But to have taught it in some other way than that, of course, that wasn't possible when I was a kid. But now, within 10 years, it will totally, people like Howard Zinn have already given us a much more accurate version of history and just the normal methods of writing, and maybe a couple of lectures he gave. But now we'll be able to do it, at way higher levels with the emotions and everything, not just the facts.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like
Yeah.
it could revolutionize your history class for sure.
Yeah, well, exactly. Not only will it make it much more interesting, it'll be almost like Quantum Leap, where you can go back in the Civil War, you can go back to the Gettysburg Address or anything like that. You probably wouldn't be able to change it, but you can actually be there and see what they felt like, what Lincoln felt like, what some of the Native Americans, Geronimo, whatever, what they might have felt like, Custer, at Custer's last stand, and all those type of things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So our second prediction actually kind of goes along with that, but it's avatars, replicant technologies, and the potential to record these memories in some kind of physical fashion, if you will. So Bernie, what is Ray Kurzweil's prediction here?
Yeah. Well, of course, he's most well known. Obviously, he's a great inventor and all the other things he's done. But his book, The Singularity, so he thinks by about 2040, not exact date, but not too far from now, AI will be so smart, it will basically be no more need for humans unless we work with AI and use it intelligently. So what that could also mean is that there'll be a lot more virtual and augmented reality, which is
Mm.
probably better in some sense than just virtual because you're not just in a world of your own with a little. We tried some of that at the science lab at USM a few years ago. We went on some roller coaster ride or something, and it wasn't a huge thing. But the augmented realities are really interesting because then you can do neat things, almost related back into the history. Like one example I always use is you could go, you not just visit the Colosseum in Rome. You get your ticket, you line up for a couple hours, and you walk in. But with the augmented reality, just in the glasses, you don't need a big thing. You'll still be there. You'll see the Colosseum, and you'll see the gladiators and the lions and everything fighting from 2,000 years ago right in front of you live that minute. So that will evoke the other emotions and memories and other neat things just through the augmented reality part. And that is already happening to some degree. Obviously, we just need to make it more realistic.
Yeah. And then what about the creation of avatars of people?
Mhm.
It's kind of
Right.
along
Well,
the
of course, the
same.
movie Avatar was great. I think there's a new Avatar movie coming out, or it's already out, or something. Yeah. Well, that's possible. That's like even Michio talks about having a digital avatar that you can go to another planet. Once we have enough information, say
Mm,
about Mars or something, we'll be there with humans in about 2037. You could go to another planet or some other place on the Earth. You can go onto the ocean or any other place on the earth that you might want to go with a digital avatar once you know enough about that place. So it's not just watching a movie or a high definition TV, but you're actually going there and exploring. And
mhm.
obviously, that takes more technology than we have at this moment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so those first two are somewhat connected in some ways.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's exciting. And that's not necessarily the next 10 years, but in about the next 20
Well, it
years, we
depends on the
could see
levels.
that.
They already had the replicant. They already had Tupac Shakur show up
Mhm.
as a hologram, and it wasn't, all that realistic. But that's just getting better and better.
Right, right.
We can go anywhere as a hologram too. So not only can we go there as a digital avatar,
Mm-hmm.
we can go there as a hologram, and others can see us without needing laser beams to recreate
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah, and I mean, technically, all of the filters on social media, that is considered to be augmented reality.
Hmm.
The Pokemon
Right.
Go game was kind of the first one to really take advantage of that. So,
Yeah.
all right. So our third prediction is on the place of esports.
Hmm.
And so, esports is essentially we're talking about like games that you're playing as like a gamer, right? And then comparing that to actual sports with our actual players.
Right.
And so we already, it's funny, Bernie and I were just debating about this, but we already have been seeing in the gaming world that people are, winning huge sums of money. They're celebrities in that field just by playing video games, certain types of video games that are competitive in some nature. But I think what we're also seeing is that in the esports realm, this is quite an opportunity where players will be able to kind of do virtual tours of virtual training facilities, and they're kind of leading these professional esports scenes and potentially having the chance to make a lot of money at being a real professional esports player.
Yeah, even more than actual, like the Carlos Alcaraz for winning the U.S. Open just made $2.6 million. But right now in esports, you can win 3 million if you win a Fortnite contest. So it's already more than the top athletes are getting.
That's
And that
crazy.
numbers are only going to go up, and more people can
Hmm.
participate, and you don't have to train every day and start playing at 4 years old. Carlos is only 19, but he's been playing tennis for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of hours already, probably to get
Right,
to that
right.
level, and you wouldn't need that kind of training for esports. You need some training, but not a whole
Different.
physical thing. But
Yep. Very different.
yeah,
Great. So our fourth prediction is, I think, can be a kind of a contentious, but it's about the mass production of self-driving cars. And I don't think I can attribute this to any specific futurist. I don't know if you have a name next to this one, but essentially, this is just as it sounds. In the future, we will have mass production of self-driving cars. Actually, recently, this was in July of 2022, there is a self-driving tech startup called Pony.ai, and they're out of China, and they plan to mass produce autonomous driving trucks with with kind of being able to make small scale deliveries set up starting this year and next.
hmm.
And so they hope that mass production, though, of all of these trucks will start really in 2024. And so apparently there are companies from Daimler, I've never heard of this company, but to Walmart that are actually, we know that
That's
they're testing.
Mercedes-Benz,
Yeah.
Daimler-Benz. It's the same company.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
I've never heard of them.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Yeah, German. I know all the German car makers.
Yeah, and so they again this company Pony.ai had announced that they have a annual production goal of 10,000 trucks within a few years, and they're going to come with level 4 autonomous driving technology. We could probably do a whole nother show all about what what are the technologies in self-driving cars, but level 4 autonomous driving technology means that this truck or this vehicle would be able to self-drive on highways and urban roads. It's just part of a classification system that designates, kind of full self-driving under specific conditions. Bernie, your car is pretty much self-driving on the highway, right?
Well, it has a little radar that keeps you in the lane, and if you have your cruise control on, it'll only get within like 100 yards of the car in front of you, and so on. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, you can let go of the wheel for a little while, and it's nothing like a Tesla.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
a lot of the cars have something like that, but I don't really call it self-driving yet. No. Yeah,
It'll kind of guide you on
yeah,
the highway anyways. It
yeah,
does require some kind of optimal conditions.
yeah, yeah.
I wonder how well it does in the rain. For instance, I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter because it's
No,
just
it
looking
didn't
for the
matter. I
light.
don't. I
Yeah.
don't really have been in the rain much with it, but I'm
Yeah.
sure it works just as good.
I did want to spend just a little bit of more time on this though, because it's kind of interesting. But there are some negative impacts that we would have to account for when driverless cars come into the picture as kind of a very commonplace in our society. The first big one, obviously, is the recession, or not recession, the unemployment that we would see. According to US Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2019, more than 2 million people were employed in some kind of driving
Mm.
position. So that's quite a bit of the population that would no longer have this form of job. Uh, Hackers may be more, the vehicles may be more susceptible to hacking. And so you could be trying to get to Bangor and then you end up in like, I don't know,
Or
Springfield,
Mexico or something.
Massachusetts. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And so that's apparently there are kind of security hackers, if you will, who have started to exploit some of the flaws in modern automobiles. And they've been able to successfully hack, for example, the Tesla Model S, a Jeep Cherokee 67, both of which are EV cars. And so a driverless car could potentially be entirely controlled by hardware, software, I guess, hacking.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that could be, and they could potentially cause it to crash purposefully.
Mm.
So that's a little bit scary. Another
You
thing
always have a
to,
built-in mode you could take over as manual if that happens.
yeah,
You
yeah,
notice it.
yeah,
If you're asleep and you might end up in Canada or you Bangor, it's different. But if you
right.
notice that you're a few exits past Bangor, and then you can do something about it.
Yeah, yeah. The auto industry obviously would be completely upended if, if it continues to be like down the pathway of, you can order a driverless car, then maybe you won't need to own your own car. So that could be kind of another consequence to consider. Auto insurance might be really different as well if the risks are pretty much eliminated by technology.
Mhm.
And then the last one, which is kind of interesting, is car sickness. Um, the University of Michigan suggested that 6 to 12% of all American passengers will do experience motion sickness and might become nausea. And they're saying that if you're bored, you might be more likely to do activities that could cause nausea, like reading or writing or things like that. So, kind of interesting things to consider. All right, our fifth prediction, man on Mars. What's up with this in 2037, Bernie?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the number I picked. I heard anything from 2035 to 2040.
Hmm.
And of course, NASA's working on that, as is Elon Musk with his rockets and all that. But basically, of course, we're not off to a great start because we were supposed to launch the first test to go back to the moon at the end of August, and they've scrubbed it 2 or 3 times. Now they're hoping for October sometime. Of course, the window with us lining up to get to the moon. So all that has to work out first. Hopefully, humans by 2025, and that'll give us 12 more years to get ready for Mars. Well, first, of course, again, it's a time factor. It takes 6 months to get there. You'd have to be there for a year and a half, and it would take 6 months to get back. So it's basically a 3-year commitment, just the way Mars orbits the Earth, to do that and to get back. Of course, colonizing it, that's still further down the road. But
Yeah.
getting there, I'm predicting the actual date of 2037. The first humans could be starting to walk around on Mars. There's a lot of steps until then, but it's pretty neat because Mars is so bright in the sky right now. You can think about that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Mhm.
Great. And then our sixth prediction that we have is potentially Jurassic Park. So the resurrection of extinct species appears to be closer than ever.
Mhm.
Bernie, what is the story with this woolly mammoth?
Yeah, well, it hasn't been done yet, but of course, when they found some, they thought it would be possible. There's actually a company that raised $15 million already, and you think by 2027 or so, 5 more years, they'll actually be able to do that in the clone one and so on. And of course, you don't have to end there. We could do passenger pigeons, the thylacine, all kinds of other extinct creatures that weren't from way back. I mean, the DNA for the dinosaurs has degraded. Not that it still isn't possible if we find some other method from 65 million. Some are saying that even the mammoth from 30,000 years ago won't really work. But as you know, the company already raised that much money, so within 5 years, I'm not sure the benefit of all that or what that
Oh
would
yeah,
mean.
I was gonna say, what is the point?
Yeah, I mean, we have
Um,
elephants, they're pretty neat. And
mhm.
then why we need mammoth running around too. I mean, it'd be nice to get some species back, maybe like the passenger pigeon or the ivory-billed woodpecker or something.
Right, I was gonna say, like, this sounds more like a more important need might be recently extinct or kind of some of our endangered
Hmm.
um, species that
Right.
we're trying to kind of fix our mistakes with. But I mean, if they can't survive now, they're just going to be like in a zoo or something,
Yeah,
which is
and they'd
not,
be easier to bring back, obviously, because
yeah.
even with all that money raised, they're not sure if they can even do the mammoth.
Mm,
I think
mm,
they can, but they might need some more new technology.
mm.
It might be important to try to bring some plants back too, like the American chestnut.
Yeah.
35
Yeah.
billion of those died out in about 10 years with the
Mm,
blight. And now, even now, they're trying to bring them back, but they have a lot of problems with them even now. We think we talked about trees and some of those things before. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
we do
maybe
need more diversity there.
yeah,
A
right.
lot of lack of
Yes, it
diversity
was
in
a
our,
great tree, just
yeah.
divided, and then there was just a great
Hmm.
tree, and we can't do that right now.
All right, number seven, a new generation of Bitcoin.
Hmm.
So the prediction here is that the next generation of Bitcoin will completely replace traditional hard money, which will kind of essentially create a new paradigm for digital commerce. Right now, it is still kind of in its infancy. Um, who is it? El Salvador has Bitcoin as its legal tender as well.
Yeah, and I think there was
Um,
an island too that was in big financial trouble and bailed itself out by doing that, or
oh
a version
wow,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't know what Bitcoin 2 or 3 or 4.0 will look like, but that is a prediction that it will be the replacer of our money and it will be one currency for the whole world.
Hmm. Of course, that can have some danger as far as, there are all these people trying to control things that want to do that one currency, and they thought
Right,
credit
right.
cards could be that. But it could even things out as far as giving access. I think there's more cell phones per person in Africa even than here. They can do they can do all their financial transactions
Yep.
just through cell phones in some parts of Africa. I
Yep.
don't know, I guess we're getting to that point. But yeah.
All right. And then our last prediction for today is on how we honor our dead. And I thought that these were really interesting. So, reimagining our memorial rituals. Apparently, there is a organization called Elysium Space, and they will offer two types of memorials. One is the Shooting Star Memorial, which will deliver a symbolic portion of your loved one's remains to Earth's orbit. So, when you're dead, you could potentially be orbiting the Earth. The next memorial is apparently a collaboration with the SpaceX Falcon 9. And then they have their second one is the Lunar Memorial, which is delivering a symbolic portion of remains to the surface of the moon. And that's a partnership with the Astrobotic Lunar Mission, which I don't know who or where that's from, but those are two ways you might be able to be memorialized. And then the last thing on death is that there is potentially going to be a new way to essentially commit suicide, which is there is a Sarco capsule which will allow anybody with an access code to peacefully and reliably end their life with the press of a button. And so I don't know the legality of that, but it will apparently be an option in the future. So, what are the implications there? All right. Now, as we end our show, we have Bernie. You're going to give us a 2-minute Tesla
Oh, I
overview.
only get 2 minutes? Okay. Well, I think for me, Nikola Tesla was the greatest futurist of all of them
Mm,
because he passed away in 1943, but as early as before 1900, he came up with some of the things that we're just now starting to begin with. So he already thought of self-driving cars, smart homes, all these type of things. So I had a whole list, but I'll just name a few of them. So definitely smart homes. He thought of that in about a little bit after 1900. Then, of course, his big thing was wireless energy transmission. So in a sense, he basically predicted the internet in a way because he wanted it as far as power, so we don't have to pay, a power company money to get our energy. And he built all these towers like Wardenclyffe that was taken down when J.P. Morgan thought, we should obviously charge people for this power, and Tesla thought it should all be free. So he did use the Tesla coils, and he has thousands of other inventions, many of which have never even been built. Then here's a really neat one I thought. It's called thought photography. So you're actually taking a picture of what the image someone would have in their head, and it's not just like you. So basically, you're reading minds, and you can take a picture of that because that'd be a snapshot of any given time. But he thought of that over 100 years ago. And then here's a really neat one. I don't know how he would even do that. So airplanes flying without fuel. So this would be great. So you can go anywhere in the world. You would unite people in countries, remote regions. Everyone would be equal. You could end
wow.
world hunger. You could distribute food. Obviously, the big drawback now is the fuel and the jet
Hmm.
fuel and all the global warming and everything that causes. So that was a huge thing. And then, as I mentioned, self-driving cars. And then a really dramatic one, the death ray. He was
Mm,
actually working on a death ray, some kind of a super powerful laser beam. Of course, he knew about nuclear weapons because he passed away in 1943. But this could potentially even be more powerful. You could blow up another planet or a star, or like Star Wars, obviously, and some of those, the Death Star and so on. But he was actually working on the death rate. I don't think he got very far on that. And of course, everything he did was for the positive. So that's just some of the things. But he was certainly a great futurist, and I think he was still working on things right up until 1943. So it'd be nice to know some of the things he was working on that maybe we
Yeah.
don't know about yet.
Oh man, Tesla of all the scientists that are famous that got gypped, he's
Yeah.
definitely one of them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Bernie.
Yep.
Thank you, listeners, for listening to the predictions that we shared with you. With that, you have been listening to Scientifically Speaking here on WMPG with myself and Bernie. Stay tuned for Something for the Weekend with Danila and from your favorite nerds. Enjoy the equinox and say hello to fall.
Okay.